Hello everybody, hope you're having a wonderful day, and this is lesson number 26 in our dive into the wonderful world of musical theory. And today we're going to be talking about the almighty major scale. Now you'll have to pardon me today as I have a hiccup problem, so I may hiccup in the middle of my speech, but hopefully I'll still be audible and understandable. That being said, today we're going to be talking about the major scale, which is an incredibly important topic. So the major scale is an incredibly important topic. It's really central to a lot of how music theory and Western music works. It's central to the language. It's really important when considering things like harmony. It's very, as I said, it's very central to the language in which you write music, and most music is written in a major scale. So for being very important and very central to music theory in general. See, I'm hiccuping. I'm so sorry for that, but you'd have to bear with it for the rest of the video. So as I said, so major scales. So now, as I said, it's a very important topic. Now, before I get into exactly what a major scale is and how it works, you'll notice that a major scale is a type of scale. So I've not talked about musical scales yet, right? A major scale is just one type of a scale. So before I get any further and start talking about a major scale, I first want to talk about musical scales in general. So what is a scale? What does that mean? What is the music? So we've got a major scale, right? But what is a scale in general? Now, a scale is a sequence of pitches dividing an octave, which are ordered according to pitch. So that's a very long and wordy definition of a scale, but let's look at the keywords. Let's take the takeaways. So number one, a scale is a sequence of pitches. So what does that mean? So it's basically just a bunch of pitches. So we have different types of pitches, right? We have C, we have F sharp, we have D, we have A, we have B. So yeah, it's a sequence of pitches. So that's the first thing about a scale. Great. But it's not just any random sequence of pitches, right? Number 2 point is it's dividing an octave. What does that mean? Well, what that means is, practically what that means is that it's moving throughout an octave, or in other words, if it starts on one pitch, let's say C, whatever, you can have any pitches in between, but you have to end on another pitch, and that is C. So you have to start on C and end on C. That's another another rule of scales that you have to obey. So any scale will start on one pitch and end on another pitch, right? And this pitch which you start and end on is actually called the tonic. So I'd like you to keep that in mind. This pitch is called the tonic. I'd really like you to keep that in mind. The one you start on and end on. So for all scales, this is not just specific to major scale. This is for all scales, minor scales, modes, even the chromatic scale, right? All scales. Finally, last point, they are ordered according to pitch. That means that they are ordered, so it's not just any random order. They're ordered according to the pitch. That means you can have two possibilities. You can have an ascending scale where each pitch is higher than the previous one, or a descending scale where each pitch is lower than the previous pitch, right? So successively lower than the previous pitches, right? So these are the only two possibilities. So you can't have a random number of, even if it's F sharp, D, F, and C. No, it's not. This does not work, right? Why? Because it's not ordered according to pitch. No, it has to be either ascending or descending. You can have any number of pitches in between the two C's, but they must be ordered either in ascending fashion or in a descending fashion, right? And this rule also encompasses both C's, right? So let's recap. A scale is a sequence of pitches, right? It can be any sequence of pitches. I've written. Alright, it divides an octave, right? Second rule, divides an octave. If you start on this particular pitch, and I've written C here, but it can be any pitch. It could be a D, it could be an F sharp. You can start on any pitch, but if it starts on that pitch, it must end on that same pitch scale. it must end on that same pitch, and that pitch, the one it starts on and ends on, is called the tonic. It's called that pitch is called the tonic, and I really want you to remember that. And final thing is, it is ordered according to pitch. That means all the notes in between the two tonics are either going to be in ascending order or descending order, right? Including the two tonics. So if it's in ascending order, the first tonic is lower than the last tonic, because all the pitches are going high, high, high. If it's in descending order, then the first tonic is higher than the lower tonic, right? I'm pretty sure that makes sense. Okay, so once again, this is what a scale is, right? I want to make that clear. These are three conditions for a scale. Now, a major scale is a type of scale, right? We have multiple different types of scales. We have Lydian modes, we have a mixed Lydian mode, we have a minor scale, we have a chromatic scale. Just like that, we have a major scale. But this is arguably the most important one, right? It's so important that most people say that all other scales should be written in terms of a major scale, or stuff like that. It's extremely important, and it's extremely central to the musical language that we have, which is music theory. And before I even get to describing what a major scale is or how to create one, I want to play one for you. Right, so I said a scale is meant to, it's just a sequence of notes sequence of pitches which you play one after the other. So I'm going to play a major scale for you, and hopefully it will sound very familiar. It will sound just a little bit familiar. So I'll play a major scale for you just now. Once again. And I'm sure you've heard this sequence of pitches everywhere in one form or the other. In fact, it is the famous do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. That do, re, mi, fa, sol is also a major scale. It's nothing but a major scale. Just as I have ti, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. See, it's just a major scale. So this is a major scale. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do is a major scale. And even in Indian culture, where we have Indian classical music, we have sa re ga ma pa da ni sa re ga ma pa da ni sa, which is also a major scale. Sa re ga ma pa da ni sa. It's nothing but a major scale. So major scales are all over music. They're everywhere, right? Even if you don't look at Western music, in Indian music, I'm confident, and Asian music as well, you'd find a major scale, right? And it's do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So I just wanted to say that it's very common, and that's what it sounds like. I'll play it for you once again. Yeah. Okay, great. So we know what it sounds like. Now let's get to describing it. Now, a major scale, like most scales, is not described as a sequence of pitches, like for example C, D, E, F, and so on. We do not define a major scale this way. That's because there are in a major scale there are many different major scales which are sorted according to the tonic. So you can have a major scale with any tonic. Now let me explain what that means. You could have a C major scale which starts on C and ends on C, but you could also have an E major scale which starts on E and ends on E, and you could also have an F major scale which starts on F and ends on F, right? So a major scale is defined, in fact, not by the pitches themselves, but by the intervals. It has a blueprint whose language is the intervals. So a major scale is defined as the interval between its consecutive pitches, not by the pitches themselves. Right? So as I said, I'll demonstrate what I mean. So I can have a C major scale. It's probably one of the most famous ones. But I can also have a D major scale, which sounds like this. And in the first one I started on C, ended on C. In the second one I started on D, ended on D. I can also have an E major scale. I can also have an F major scale. I can also have a G major scale, and so on and so forth. I can have each pitch you can have a major scale for that pitch. So it's not defined as just a bunch of pitches. No, there's a blueprint, so to speak. A major scale has a blueprint, right? For if you start on any specific pitch, right, whether that be C sharp or F sharp or D or A, whatever pitch, right, using intervals, you can construct that pitch's major scale. So every pitch has its own major scale, and there's a blueprint for how to construct that, and that's what we're going to learn right now. And as I said, this blueprint in terms of intervals. So what it's really telling you is, if you start on this note, the next note should be a certain distance which we learnt about. We learnt about intervals in the last lesson, tones and semitones, to be more precise. This one, the next note has to be exactly maybe a semitone away, and then the one after that has to be maybe 2 tones away, or whatever, right? So it's defining it as, it is defining it not as a bunch of pitches, but the next pitch has to be this distance away from the previous pitch, and the other pitch has to be this distance away from the pitch that came before it, and so on and so forth. So without further ado, let's just learn the blueprint. So, and it may not, it's okay if you don't fully understand what I'm talking about right now. With practice, I'm sure you, with some practice and with me, with some more examples, you'll understand. So let's just jump into the blueprint. So all major scales start on the tonic, which is, as I said, this is the note we're starting on and ending on, the pitch you're starting on and ending on. A C major scale has C as its tonic, an F sharp major scale has F sharp as its tonic, and so on and so forth. Okay, so you start on the tonic. The next pitch that comes in a major scale, the next pitch is a tone, is at a tone distance from the tonic. So this is for an ascending major scale, right? So the next pitch that comes after that pitch is a tone away from the previous one, right? You move a tone forward. The pitch that comes after that is a tone away from the previous pitch. So this is in terms of the second note is a tone away from the first note, and the third note is a tone away from the second note, and so on and so forth. So it's distance from the previous note rather than from the tonic. Okay, the second note in a major scale, or here's the tonic. The second pitch is a tone away from the tonic. The third pitch is a tone away from the second pitch. The third pitch, the fourth pitch is a semitone away from the third pitch, right? So the fourth pitch is a semitone away from the third pitch. Then the fifth pitch is a tone away from the fourth pitch. The sixth pitch is a tone away from the fifth pitch. The seventh pitch is a tone away from the sixth pitch, and the last pitch, which is the tonic again, is a semitone away from the seventh pitch. So this is the blueprint. You have tonic, tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. And what this means is, once again, the second pitch is a tone away from a tonic. The third pitch is a tone away from the second pitch. The fourth pitch is a semitone away from the fourth pitch is a semitone away from the third pitch, and so on and so forth. And the minute you get the semitone interval, the minute you jump a semitone, you have suddenly reached your tonic back again. And now is where I'd like to direct you to straight to an example, because it's best to just learn an example. So let's say I start on a tonic of C, and I want to make a C major scale, which means I'm starting on ending and ending on C. So how do I make that scale? I'm going to use my blueprint here. So what's the second note in the scale? What's the second note in the scale? Well, the second note is a tone away from the previous note. So what is a tone away? What is a note that's a tone away from a C? Well, the answer is a D. If you're confused by what I mean by tone and semitone, I encourage you to go watch my previous lesson. Okay, now let's come to the third pitch. The third pitch is a tone away from the second pitch. The third pitch is a tone away from the second pitch. So once again, what's a pitch that's a tone away from D? Well, the answer is E. And you can double check this. It has a D sharp in between them, right? So it's definitely a tone. Now the fourth pitch, now this is important, is a semitone away from the third pitch. So what pitch is a semitone away from E? Well, the answer is F. And because remember, there's no pitch in between E and F, right? So it's just F. Great. The fifth pitch is a tone away from the fourth pitch. What's the tone away from F? G. The sixth pitch is a tone away from the fifth pitch. What's the tone away from G? That's A. The seventh pitch is a tone away from the sixth pitch, so that's a B, because the distance between A and B is a tone. And finally, the tonic, or the eighth pitch, right, is exactly a semitone away from our seventh pitch, and that indeed does bring us back to C, because there's no pitch in between B and C. And this, my friends, is the C major scale. So I've constructed the scale using the blueprint, and just like I constructed it for C, right, I can construct it for any pitch, and we'll do that. But just to give you just what it sounds like, a C major scale sounds like this: C D E F G A B C, C D E F G A B C. So that's what it sounds like. That's a C major scale, right? And a major scale has a very distinctive sound no matter where you start and where you end, right? For example, I'm sure you can recognize this is a major scale and this is a major scale. I'm sure you can recognize both the major scales even though they started on different tonics. So anyways, this is the system there. So we've constructed a C major scale. Okay, let's try another one. Let's try some other ones. And you know, this just happens to be in terms of the natural pitches, but in literally all the other scales, see major scales, you have a lot of accidental. So let's try a G major scale next. G major scale. Now I want you to pause the video and try to use this. I know it's a bit hard, you just learned it, but this is the best way to learn, honestly. Just practice and try to do it yourself. So I want you to pause the video and try to use the same blueprint, right? Just how I've demonstrated and just how I've described, and try to make a G major scale. Okay, now I'm assuming you've tried to do that. Now I'm going to do it. So once again, because the G major scale, our tonic is going to be G. We start on G, right? That's it. Now, what about our next note? What's the next note in the series? What's the next note in the sequence? Well, it's supposed to be a tone away from G. Which pitch is a tone away from G? It's an A. The next note is supposed to be. I'm going to shorten what I'm saying each time because I'm just going to shorten what I'm saying each time so it's just faster. The next one is supposed to be a tone away from the previous one, so it's going to be B. The next one is supposed to be a semitone away from the previous one, so it's going to be C. The next one is supposed to be a tone away from the previous one, so it's going to be D. The next one is supposed to be a tone away from the previous one, which is going to be E. The next one is supposed to be a tone away from the previous one, which is going to be F sharp. Keep this in mind, my friends. Not F. E to F is a semitone because there's no pitch in between. E to F sharp is a tone because you have F in between. So remember this. This is B and C and E and F is a common mistake. Alright? And then finally, our last pitch, our tonic, is a semitone away from the previous one, which is indeed G. And this is, my friends, a G major scale. Great. Let's try one more. Let's try a D major scale. And let me play a G major scale for you once. You just get to understand that it indeed does sound like a major scale. So a G major scale sounds like this. Once again. So it does sound like a major scale, right? The next one is a D major scale. Let's do one more example. So as you can see, the scale has a blueprint, right? So each pitch has its own major scale, and I'm just using this blueprint which is telling me the distances between the notes to construct a major scale for each one. And don't worry, the more practice you get in this, the faster you'll be able to do this. And in fact, most musicians aren't constructing major scales in their head all the time. They're either able to do it very fast because with practice this process just becomes faster and faster and faster. But a lot of them, at that point, you just memorize most of the major scales, especially when you start learning more and more of key signature, which is something we're going to be getting into later. Regardless, so okay, I wanted to pause the video and think about which note I'm going to start on in a D major scale. Which pitch am I going to start on? Well, the answer is D, because D is the tonic. I'm going to start on D. Right? Great. Once again, pause the video to try yourself, and I'm assuming you've done that, and now I'm going to do it. So D, tonic. So one tone away from D. That is E. Chalo, one tone away from E. Once again, an F sharp. Keep that in express mind. Then a semitone away from F sharp. That's G. Then a tone away from G. That's A. Then a tone away from A. That's B. Then a tone away from B. Remember, C sharp. A tone away from B is indeed C sharp. Okay, because the C comes in between. B and C is a semitone, and then C sharp, a semitone away from that is D, and we're done. D major scale. D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. And I'll play it for you. It sounds like this. Let me play it a bit louder. Once again. It sounds like Do, Re, Mi, Fa, right? So exactly. All of these do, because they're all major scales. So as I said, a major scale doesn't have, it's not actually a series of pitches. It's a blueprint that can give you a series of pitches for any tonic which you choose. And this is how nearly all scales work. The chromatic scale, in fact, works the same way. It's just the blueprint for a chromatic scale is just semitone, 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 and so on and so forth, right? And once again, you can write a chromatic scale starting on any pitch. The same way you can do that for chromatic scale, you can do that for major scales. You can write a major scale starting on any pitch, and this is the blueprint. So the way a lot of people remember it is, um, this tonic is has a T, so a lot of people remember it as triple T S, triple T S. But or just tone tone semitone, tone 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 semitone, whatever works for you. But just remember, there's tone tone semitone, tone 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 semitone. Right? You can take a screenshot of this, you can write this down, or you can memorize it, whatever suits you. But do keep this in mind. This is very important for really all of music. This is an extremely important concept, major scale. So once again, yeah, that's all that there really is to major scale which I wanted to cover today. Let's just recap. A scale, right? Not just a major scale. Any scale is a sequence of pitches that divide an octave and are ordered according to pitch. That means that it's a bunch of pitches, but which have to be in either ascending or descending order and start and end on the same pitch. That was the conditions for some group of pitches to be a scale. Now, major scale is all of that except it has a strict blueprint. So the blueprint is you start in the tonic and then the next note is a tone away, and tone tone semitone tone 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 semitone, and so on and so forth. Right? So this is the blueprint to construct a major scale on any note. And once again, why? Okay, maybe I'll address this right now. Why is the major scale so special? Well, it is, just think about why has it we this whole mechanism, it's not that we invented major scales and only then do re fa sa re ga ma pa da ni sa came up. No, that's not how it worked. No, just it is, when we have in music we call a sound consonant or consonant. It's when it sounds really good, and this is one, it is probably the most consonant scale. That means it sounds the best. So all these cultures have come up with the major scale just because it's so natural. In fact, when we think of, just to list all the pitches, we don't often think about the chromatic scale. The chromatic scale sounds a bit weird, don't you think? It strikes very weird, whereas the major scale, it sounds so it sounds so normal and vanilla. Sounds so normal and regular. So it is one of the most consonant scales. That means it sounds the best to the ears, and it's probably one of the first scales that was discovered. And that's why it's a lot of other scales are written in terms of the major scale. So it's very important for both in terms of the musical language, because we have made it that way because it sounds like that. And another thing to keep in mind is a lot of music is written in terms of a major scale. That means that it only uses the pitches that are present in a specific major scale. But that's a concept we'll get into later. Regardless, point is, it sounds really good, and it really comes down to that. It sounds really right? For example, this sounds wholesome, and it sounds pleasing to the ear, right? Right? So that's an example of consonants. This probably does not sound very pleasing to the ear, right? It sounds, and this probably doesn't. It's dissonant. So this is dissonant and it's consonant. And this is one of the most consonant scales. It sounds very good, and that's why it's so used. That's what I was trying to put across. Anyway, that's all I really wanted to cover for today. Thank you so much for listening in. Hopefully you gained something valuable. Hopefully this lesson was relatively enjoyable for you. And I'll see you next time. We will be talking about the minor scale, which is another form of scale, which is another scale. So till then, see you. Thank you so much, and bye. See you in the next lesson.